Bryan Donaldson has been described as a man who has such a love for Christ and the desire to do God's will that he is driven by his faith to spread that beautiful fragrance everywhere he goes and with anyone he comes in contact with. We're honored to have him on My Faith with Homer and Pip. I'm Tommy Pippins. More importantly, we have Brent Young, our producer, making it happen every week. And Steve the Homer True, he and the Holy Spirit had the idea for My Faith with Homer and Pip. As always, Homer, kick it off with Bryan Donaldson.
It never changes. I always want to know more, but I also want to know when and how he chooses. Bryan, you choose to start your story. Take it away.
You got it. Well, first of all, I just want to say how I'm honored to come on the show with you guys. I'm a huge fan of you, Pip. I've been listening to you ever since I was 2, 3 years old. Packers, man. I know I bleed red, but green and gold. My mom and dad pretty much gave me the A-OK for to be a Packer fan for life. So I've known you for a while, and then Steve the Homer True. Obviously, I've listened to you every single day with a good buddy of mine, Tony Smith. Obviously, so this is an honor to do this with you guys, and I do appreciate it. But it starts in Greenfield, Wisconsin. I was born and raised in Greenfield, Wisconsin, by my mother, my father, my 2 grandparents were fantastic. Went to Whitnall High School, played basketball there for a long time, for 4 years. But to backtrack, I played basketball for a guy named Steve Pelkoffer, was a fantastic basketball coach. And since my mom introduced me to the game, and I was supposed to be raised Catholic, never went to church, only on the 2 days, Easter and Christmas. And my parents were pretty much like, they said Tuesdays and Thursdays were basketball practice. I know I had Bible class to go to, or I was supposed to, and they pulled me out of those to do a lot of basketball stuff. Games were all over the place. I breathed the game of basketball for a long time. I went to, after Whitnall, I played there for 4 years under Coach K. Coach Kropa was a guy that was hard-nosed. You can't get that nowadays, especially with how life is nowadays. But he was hard-nosed, held people accountable, loved you hard, treated you like a son, treated me like a son. And after that, I was able to go to Concordia University of Wisconsin in Mequon and play under Coach Cassidy. And that was a different environment for sure. Because when I got there, Coach Cassidy was a very, very godly Christian man. It was a Lutheran university. I've never taken any Bible classes. I had to do it for 4 years. I've never, really dove into that too much. And he was different because at Whitnall with Coach K, there was cussing, there was fighting, there was a lot of, it was good stuff, really good. I loved it. He turned me into the man I am today, along with my parents and grandparents. But it was different to be held accountable to a standard of, we're not gonna cuss, we're not gonna fight. You're gonna be a godly man. You're gonna be accountable for your actions. You're not gonna speak being downgraded. You're gonna be positive all the time, and you're gonna love the Lord. And I was like, whoa. But if I miss a shot, or if I turn the ball over, I used to be able to cuss, or someone would cuss at me, my coaches, and I could handle that. And I remember one of the first weeks I was there during an open gym that the coaches could watch, turn the ball over, got yelled at myself. I was very, very hard on myself as a point guard, obviously, and said something I shouldn't have, and boom, he's like, you got to get out. So that was kind of a wake up call where I had to turn my mindset to I can't act like I want to. I have to stay accountable for my actions. I have to make sure that God is at the forefront of things, even though I had no idea what that meant at the time. And that's kind of where I really got a taste of what an actual godly man is supposed to be like. Sorry, Homer and Pip, you guys are a little bit frozen on my computer. Hopefully I'm doing okay right now.
You're doing great. Just keep sharing.
Perfect. And that during that course of time at Concordia, I had a relationship for about 6 years, and I didn't know how to be a boyfriend, husband material, fiance material, and we had great times. But I could tell by about that fifth, sixth year when we started moving in that things were not correlating to what God had for me. And at the time when I graduated from Concordia, I taught at Brown Deer right away. I've been working at Brown Deer for 9.5 years. Guys that you probably know, Coach Novak was one of the ADs there, so I'm really good friends with Coach Novak. He kind of brought me in. I helped coach with Kelly Appleby. We won a state championship in 2014 when I was there. Good. I know you guys are big sports guys. Obviously, Zach Bond was my shooting guard. It doesn't hurt to have Zach Bond kind of running around and dunking everything, which was awesome. But to backtrack, I was doing so much basketball and so much basketball training that when I got to Concordia, I was able to use the gyms, and I was able to work players out and kids out and kind of grow my business that way. And it was awesome. I love coaching, but God was kind of turning me towards coaching and training, and it took me away from my relationship. And I believe what God was kind of telling me was, you're not ready. You're definitely not ready, and this is not what I want for you. I have more for you. And even though you guys are okay right now, I have something more for you. And I remember a conversation I had with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and I told her I would put basketball first and teaching first and training first. And we both kind of separated at that time mutually, and it was for the best. And it was tough, very, very, very tough at the time. And I took it really hard because I felt that I've been successful for a lot of years with basketball and with training and with teaching, and things kind of came natural to me that I think God was pushing me to be maybe not as, hey, you don't get the success on this one because it's not the right thing for you. And that kind of brought me to a point in my life where I had to really lean on God to be like, you know what, this is not what's right for you. And I have to understand that my faith has to be bigger, and I can't just choose to do what I want to do. I have to have faith in the Lord that he's going to pull through every single time, even though that at the time I was like, holy cow, I just put in 6 years and now everything's kind of, destructing, and I don't know what to do. And I remember briefly, I just wrote it down. I remember briefly, I was going to church at Germantown Life Church, and Pastor Aaron Cole, fantastic guy. I remember going there, and I was with my best friend's family, and they would pull me to church, and I was getting a little bit more invested. And I remember it was Thanksgiving of 2016. I believe my wife can correct me if I'm wrong, but my wife had her really good friends, Mr. and Mrs. Dodens. Their son Luke was actually my best friend, and we would go to church together. And lo and behold, I was sitting 5 or 6 family members of the Dodens away from my soon-to-be wife. They always did Thanksgiving a week prior to Thanksgiving, and they invited me over. They knew I was kind of struggling with some things, and they invited Sarah over as well. Sarah Elliott at the time, and lo and behold, she turned into be my wife. And we didn't speak. We didn't really look at each other. She had a son, Jackson, at the time. And I believe he was about 6. He's 13 now. And I had no idea that God had things orchestrating. And it was, looking back now, 6 years roughly to that 2016, 2017 Thanksgiving, I'm like, holy cow, it's crazy how God kind of orchestrates things and you don't even know that he's doing it. So a couple of weeks later, there was a service at the church I was going to at Life Church. And I remember Curtis Eubanks. I'm not sure if you guys know the name of Curtis Eubanks. When he sang, he worshiped, and he doesn't come around a lot because he's pulled in 1,000 different directions. He's one of the greatest singers I've ever personally heard in my life. And I believe he sang, what was he singing? He sang, I think it was "Thank You for the Cross," and I was listening to it, and for the first time ever, it was palpable where I could kind of feel the Lord on top of me, where I was just like, this is unbelievable. Why am I crying? And Eubanks was singing, and I just remember weeping. And I sat down and I prayed to the Lord, and I was just saying, you know what? It's not my timing. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Why am I so trying to do things my way? The basketball thing is great, but man, to be honest with you, Lord, I want to be a better man and a better husband, because that was my main goal. I want to be a husband. I want to be a father. I want to coach, and I want to raise kids. And the way I was going, I didn't know how to do it. But listening to him, God being palpable at the time, and me weeping there, just sitting there like, please, Lord, can you send me somebody? And it was crazy, because at the time that I was doing that, my wife expressed to me that she was doing the same thing. She was in on and off relationship with Jackson's father for 15 or so years. And you can tell there was some good times, some bad times. I'm not going to share any of that right now, but you could tell there was some highs, some lows, probably a little bit more lows than highs. And she was at the end of her ropes, praising or talking to God, saying, can you bring somebody too? So when I use that word orchestrate, it was just, gosh, it was just crazy the way that my relationship was ending. I turned to God. I surrendered. I said, Lord, I need you to bring me somebody, because I think I know what I need to do to become a more godly man, a godly husband, and to be the leader of my house. At the same time, Sarah was doing the same thing. And I reached out to her through mutual friends. We got to talking. She said she had a son, Jackson, and it was great. Thank God Jackson loves sports. Otherwise, if he was any type of music player, or even if he was a nerd and loved all that stuff, I'd love him. But man, it just makes things so much easier when he loves fishing, sports, golf, basketball, baseball. It kind of makes things easier. So we started hitting it off really well, started going to church. She was raised in the church where I was not. It was totally opposite spectrums, where my mom and dad were saying basketball is more important. No Bible class, you got practice. And her mom was pulling her to church on Wednesdays and Tuesdays and Sundays. And sometimes those services, Sarah would tell me, on Monday nights would go till 9, 10, 11 o'clock. And then she's going to school the next day. So obviously vastly different lives, with God at the forefront for her for many, many, many years, when he was not even at the forefront, or not even a thought process in my mind, for many, many, many years. And we got married. She gave me the talk and said, I'm not here to mess around. I got a kid. And he seems to really love you, and you seem to really love him. And we got married about a year and a half later, and we've been married for now 4 years on September 14th of 2018. So that's kind of where we're at now.
I have so many questions. The first
Please.
one is, you said this is not what's right for you. God told you that. How and when and why did you listen?
That's a really good question, Homer. And I was blessed enough to work at Brown Deer right away. The next year, I won a state championship with their team. I was just helping out Kelly Appleby, who was coaching there for a little bit. And I just couldn't get rid of the game. I was like, I need to train. I need to coach. I need to keep myself in the game. And after that, I got a job at Cardinal Stritch. The old coach, Coach Jaskulski, brought me in. I hated it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the college. I didn't like recruiting. I didn't like being on a bus all the time. I felt that my purpose was to be with middle school, high school kids. The college kids were a little bit too close in age to me, so I didn't think that I could mold their brains and try to help them grow as men. And it was okay, but it just wasn't for me. And that's where I was working Brown Deer, Cardinal Stritch, sleep. Brown Deer, Cardinal Stritch, sleep. And it was basketball, 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 teach, teach, teach. And I didn't have any time for my relationship to kind of grow. And I was trying to, I believe I was trying to put a square peg in a triangle hole. And God was saying, you're doing too much. You're overdoing it. I have a different plan for you. It's not going to be college. This girl's a great girl, but she's not for you. And I listened because it just felt that I was not living for him. It was living for the dollar potentially. It was living to boost my education. I was living to be the next Buzz Williams, Krzyzewski. I was living for that. And God told me that's not what I have for you. That's not the purpose I have for you. Kids, wife, that's my purpose for you. And right now, the road you're on is not the road. You working 18, 19 hours and then not even working to get your relationship to the next level with him at the forefront, because it wasn't. He was not at the forefront. Basketball was, teaching was, and trying to make a dollar was.
Do you remember a day or a moment when that changed?
I believe it was after she said, "We're done. You're choosing basketball over me." And I had to say, "Holy cow, I am." And it probably was maybe a week after I had that conversation of, "I'm choosing basketball in my life over you." I think my exact words were, "I'm going to put you on the back burner for a little bit, but wait, I'm going to the NCAA. I'm going to be a Division I head coach." And when those words came out of my mouth, and I kind of was going on in my mind for a while, I was like, that's not how I'm supposed to be living. And then getting pulled into church and being around a godly family like the Dodens are, and my friend Luke like they are, I just kept on finding myself with this like weight, like this palpable weight. And when I was listening to Mr. Eubanks, Curtis Eubanks, like sing, it was like a weight off my shoulders to be like, this is what I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be doing it all on my own. My time is not my time. I'm not creating all these different things. I can try to put myself in positions where it's going to work. Absolutely. But if they're not working, and it's always so stressful, and my wife always says, if the peace is gone, please, you got to get out, whatever it is. And it could be a job, it could be a relationship, it could be a friendship. If there's zero peace and there's always stress, that's God probably telling you that that's not the right way. And during that point of time, there was a lot of stress. I was not happy. And I think God was telling me, you need to switch it up, and I have something bigger for you.
When do you feel closest to God now?
When I am with my family, when I'm with my wife, at the dinner table, when I'm not doing, when my mind's not racing all over the place, I feel that I've gotten closer to him, and I am not even close to where I need to be. My wife is much closer. Her road has been longer, and she'll hate me for saying that, but I'm trying to get on her level. And I know God doesn't want you to get to levels and stuff like that, obviously with him, but it's not a competition. It's not a race. But when I'm with her, when I'm in the gym with kids that want to learn, and again, I've been training for 11 years and coaching for a little bit over that. When I'm with my family, dinner table, and we're just having good conversations, that's when I feel the presence of him, to where that weight is so like less on me. And it's like, this is what you had for me, wife. I have a 3-year-old, Miles. Jackson just turned 13. And then when I'm in the gym working with players, because I know that for a fact, when I'm with players or my business is growing, that's God saying, I have you exactly where I need you. And that's when I feel just him, because I'm just so pleased with the basketball and my coaching and my training. And I'm just so blessed that he allowed me to get a second chance. And Sarah's been just a dream come true.
I'll get to Tommy. I have just one more. You say they pulled you to church. No, they didn't. You didn't have to go. You
No,
could,
I didn't.
Oh, you could have said no, and you didn't. Why?
I felt like there was just something missing. And learning from Coach Kropa at Whitnall, that was fantastic. He made me the man I am. But going to Concordia and just kind of looking at those coaches there, I didn't have the greatest 4 years there by any stretch of the imagination. But just kind of studying and watching and looking, and then just looking at godly men that I've had relationships with, being around with, whether that's good friends. I really studied those guys, and I'm like, you know what? If this is going to be the forefront of my life, I need to dive straight in, and I need to be all in. And what I, being a coach and all that type of stuff and a teacher, I'm always learning from people that are way older than me, and I'm always trying to kind of get to a spot where that's how I want to be. That's how I should act. That's how a person that chooses God every day at the forefront needs to act. So me being not hard-headed, me not being stubborn, and trying to release all that stubbornness and moving towards those type of relationships. That's how I feel that it's been, a blessing for me, because I definitely do not have a stubborn bone in my body. Not too much. My wife does. But I'm able to really look at other people and be like, okay, I need to put that in my back pocket of how to really act as a Christian man.
When this is done, I certainly hope you will tell them so they can watch it, because I can only imagine the joy they will have in hearing your story. Tommy, it's all yours.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Homer.
Bryan Donaldson is our guest on My Faith with Homer and Pip. Homer is with us. Our producer is Brett Young, and I'm Tommy Pippins. Bryan, this has been fascinating. So now you're living for God versus living for self. And I think we can all that. How long did it take to make that transition? Did it happen overnight, or was it and is it a process, a day and a moment at a time?
It's a definite process. There are definite days where life, and obviously you guys can both understand with families, but there's so many things that happen on a course of a day. It's a process. It's just like when you wake up, what's the first thing you do? Make your bed, brush your teeth, grab your cereal, do whatever you got to do. But just speaking to God, and my wife has really, I wouldn't say train is probably not the right word, but she's encouraged me to have habits and try to stick to them. So when I get into the office at work, when I'm trying to get there 30, 40 minutes early, that's my 5 to 10 minutes to kind of be quiet before the kids all get in. They're all yelling and going crazy, ready for gym class. But that's my time where I'll listen to a sermon, where I'll have my time with the Lord. And those are the things that really, really kind of ground me. And that's where being a teacher and working with kids and training and people, that's where it's very easy for your emotions when things go wrong, especially when you're working with so many people and all the time. That's where your emotions can get the best of you. And that's where I'm constantly, seeking the Lord to be like, you know what? Hey, Lord, I know I might be struggling today, or maybe things at home are not really going to plan. And that's where, if you get to your human, your nature, your emotions, those can come out of you. And with me grounding myself, and this is not an everyday thing. There are days where I do not do it. And I wish I could be better at it, but that's the growth mindset, right? But trying to be habitual with it and make it accountable and be responsible with it. I feel, especially, I mean, Pip, you know this too. I have this in my notes too that I want to talk to you about. Being a blended family, there's always going to be times where you're tested and the human nature wants to explode. Maybe if something goes wrong, the human nature and emotions explode when, let's say my stepson disrespects his mom, or he gets a F on a test, or he doesn't turn something in, or whatever happens. And those are obviously natural things that are going to happen. And me, I could go back to my old self and speak through emotions, or I can pause, use what God has given me to try to, as best as I can, do this, not use those emotions and get wrapped up in it, but try to treat him like he should be treated, and speak to my wife and speak to everybody through a Christian kind of way, I guess, if that's the best way to put it. And it's really, really helped me understand that I can't just use the excuse, I'm human. Well, yes, I am, but I'm also, if I'm really, really working this thing out and leading with it, and God's at the forefront, I have to make these changes as well. And those changes have been great.
God has you in a great spot, and your ministries at home, as a husband, as a father, obviously working with youngsters. Maybe it's hard in the public school setting to talk about faith. How does that look for you, especially if you see a young man who, hey, you know what, that was me. That was me, crazy
Yeah.
competitive with that. How do you reconcile the challenges and yet the desire to spread the love of Jesus Christ, which obviously you're doing?
Yeah, a great question. In the public schools, obviously, you can't really show your faith too much. You can't say that I believe. I have said that in my health classes. There's health classes where I'll say, give me something that I'll give them questions of what's important to you, what do you value, and actually, a lot of those kids in my sixth grade classes will say, you know what, I value Jesus, I value my religion, I value church. And once that door is opened, I feel as an educator that if there are some times where they're struggling, that door is open to where I can say it. Otherwise, I try to get to class, and I've had this conversation with a couple other people where I just try to show grace as much as possible, understanding that especially in the community that I teach in at Brown Deer, a lot of these kids have some really rough upbringing. They don't have sometimes two parents in the household. I just had a kid that I coached for 1 year just commit suicide last year, and it was a year ago to, I believe, last week. And so a lot of things that are really tough to talk about. But I just feel every time I come into the gym or I come into the classroom, the way I act, the way I speak, I don't have to push the Bible on them. I don't have to push my faith on them. But the way I act, and hopefully the way that I speak, and I'm encouraging to all these kids, they can see the love of Jesus through me, even though I technically cannot pour it on them.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to ask about your parents as they watch this transformation, Bryan. Have you seen them grow in faith as your example?
That's awesome. I have that in my notes too, Pip. My mother was the one that was taking me out of Bible classes to play basketball. She taught me how to shoot. She taught me how to throw a football. She taught me how to do all those things sports wise. My dad and my mom split when I was 17, and my dad finally came back into my life right before my son was born, because I thought at the end of the day he needed to know that he had a grandson, and he's actually come to church a few times. But ever since I've had Sarah in my life, she's introduced my mom to church, and she's been going every Sunday for the last 4.5 years, I believe it has been, ever since we were married. So I believe she's on a streak of like 4 to 4.5 years. And that was not her forte. She had, I would say, very little faith, very little relationship. And it's been such a blessing to see her tell me when Miles has to sleep over there on a Saturday night, you got to pick him up at 8:30. I got church at 9. Like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We'll do. Okay. And it's been really cool. My dad, a little bit less, but every time I invite him, he's there. He's there, which has been just so cool to see, because going from 0 to, I guess, 100, it's remarkable. And I do attribute it, obviously, Homer said it too, where I'm not forcing my mom to go, but having my wife kind of encourage and set the tone, knowing that I wasn't involved in the church at all. And my mom said, yes, let's go. I think this is something that needs to be done. And it's been fantastic.
God, just wonderful. I had just one before I kick it over to, that is, you've got some notes there. What is it that you want people to know about your faith? I know you're doing so much because of your love for Jesus. What is it? Anything on the notes? I want to get this out. This is the time.
Yeah. That's a good question. Man, just that I hear it all the time. And you guys probably hear it all the time, that there's people that are struggling with things, or they have a past that might not be bad. I have a past. My wife has a past. Everybody's got a past. Everybody has things that if they could press the reset button or the rewind button, they would go do in a heartbeat. But God doesn't see that. God sees it. He understands it, but he wants you to move forward with him. And I guess I'm not perfect by any means, and I'm still progressing. I'm not perfect. I'm progressing. And it's just so, I just want people to know that if they're struggling with things, whatever it may be, that they can find him, and he doesn't hold grudges. There's no scoreboard that says you've messed up 66 times. Jesus is perfect, which he is. And he's condemning you 66 times. It doesn't work that way. He always sees, if you can confess what you've done, and he sees your heart, it's 0-0 on the scoreboard every time. And once you continue to try to build that relationship, it's freeing. It's freeing to understand that you can mess up, not over and over and over and over again, making the same mistake over and over again, because that means you're kind of insane. I've been heard from coaches. I've heard that quote before. But if your heart is to God and you know that you can make changes, and you know that you're not condemning yourself and have these chains all over you because of your past, and you want to move forward, you can. You can.
That's beautiful. Homer? Is our buddy there, Homer?
No, I want to know more about the notes. Like, do you write every day? What are these notes? What do
I
you
have
tell?
you have no idea. I got about 100 notes right now of all this basketball stuff.
So
I
do you
got
do it
workouts.
every day, or what's the pattern of
Um,
for you of making notes?
I wish it was every day. I had a streak going. I think Buzz Williams said. I think Homer, you'll like this. Buzz Williams says 21 days equals a habit, and I love listening to what he does. But there was I got some notebooks all over the place, and I got to get better. I do got to get better. But there was I have a great.
I didn't mean to present it that way. I was just curious. You said notes. All right.
Oh, I got notes. I got notes for everything. Most of them basketball stuff, but I do have some notes on. I do stuff with my stepson plays basketball. He plays baseball. I do training all over the place. But this is one of my favorite times because I got 9 kids on my stepson's basketball team that I can teach them the game. I can use the game of basketball as an engine to preach life and to preach the gospel, because it is not a public thing. It's a select team. So I can actually talk about Jesus, which is great. And we try to do that. And I have notes on what type of sermons I have. I have notes on sermons from Pastor Brian Engel from Shore Point Church in Brookfield. I got notes from everything. I try to use these notes, actually, Homer, good question, that I try to use them to have for our training and have for my coaching. So after every day of coaching or every day of training, I try to give the kids, whoever I'm working with, whether it's kids from Muskego or New Berlin or Grafton or Cedarburg or my Tulsa West kids with my stepson, I try to give them something to kind of get their mind working. Because in this day and age, everything's about what can I get? How can I move forward? The E word, I hate the E word, entitlement. A lot of the kids are so entitled to, what do I deserve? I deserve this. That I'm just trying to get a lot of these kids to understand that. And it could be anything, but Jesus is the one that, deserves all the glory. It's not you that made that shot. Yeah, you did. You worked really hard, but man, he's got to be the one that gets all of the glory, all of the praise. And it's been just fantastic being able to understand that I'm in my purpose because God is giving me more kids and more people to help and more people to train. And he gave me Jackson to help coach his basketball team, which has been great. But yeah, a lot of basketball notes, a lot of sermons and stuff like that on my phone.
If I interviewed one of those kids,
Sure.
and said, tell me the first thing about Coach, what would you want them to say? What do you think they would say?
Wow. that's why you are what you are, Homer, with the questions. Those are fantastic questions. I never really thought about those before. But I would want them to say that I care. I would want them to say that I have their back in everything that they do, good or bad. A lot of my kids, when I coached, Tony Smith got me the job for Ray Allen Select. I couldn't tell you how many kids from those, geez, I cannot believe how old I am, but they are now, most of them have either graduated or they're in college. I still get texts from them saying, hey, can I talk to you about this relationship I'm in? Coach, can I talk to you about this, or this? I guess what I would want them to know, the middle school kids are different, right? They have a mind of their own. They probably don't know what they would probably say to me, but the one thing that they definitely do know is the energy that I bring, how much I care for them, and I'm always going to be super encouraging. And I believe that that's what they would say, and I believe that's what I want them to say, and that every time I step on the court or in my classroom, that I'm not I'm using Jesus not as a forefront, but he's coming through me, and I'm just trying to be as proactive as possible, and trying to get the kids to just have a better life than what I had growing up with Man, that's a really good question. Really good question, Homer. I guess just
I got one.
I just want them.
one last one.
Please,
and that
please.
is, what's the hardest part for you in your faith-filled life? The hardest part.
Yeah, habits is when to like waking up early after a long day of work and training and coming home, and then spending time with my wife and my kids, which I absolutely love doing. Time can be tough, but that's an excuse, right? There's always times where you can work out. There's always times where you can eat well. There's always times where you should be worshiping. There's always times you should be reading your Bible. There's always times where you should be getting closer to God. And I think the biggest part with hardest part for me is just trying to block off that time and being committed to it every single day.
Tommy, it's all yours to finish, unless you got one more.
Well, we got to get you on the radio, brother. And I think you covered beautiful questions. Bryan Donaldson has played on a lot of teams, but now he's on God's team. And Bryan, I think you agree it doesn't get any better than that, huh?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. God bless you and your family. Thank you for making the time for us. And I know that people, when they see this, will be encouraged, as we're all on that same path, right? That when the buzzer sounds, we all want to be to and through the cross of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. God bless you, friend. It's an honor to be your brother in Christ, and wonderful to be together on My Faith with Homer and Pip. For Steve the Homer True, he and the Holy Spirit, talk about a winning combination. The incomparable Brent Young, our producer. I'm Tommy Pippins. God bless you, everybody, and see you next time on My Faith with Homer and Pip.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys both.